Halloween
Forever.
Good day, Steve. Good day, Brian.
What do you call a ceramic artist that's in need of a shave?
Ceramic artist in need of a shave. Harry Potter.
Yes, sir. It is in fact Harry Potter. Well, I'm going to start asking that you submit your answers in the form of a question. Welcome, boys and ghouls, to another fucking Minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Ron Weasley, isn't it?
Isn't it? Oi.
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 I couldn't help that one. It was very stupid. I was trying to find something that was pertaining to artists because we're talking about this here artist movie. But boy, I was just struggling on that one. The brain isn't working too great. And I am actively reading all the Harry Potter books with my kids right now for better, for worse. Yeah, not pleased with my work on that one. Overall, not going to be able to look at myself in the mirror for a couple of days. Really got to pick up the game for the next episode, guys. But listen, it's Father's Day weekend. This is the weekend, one weekend of the year. I am, in fact, a father, right? Steve, you aren't at that, you know of.
I know of.
But this is the weekend where for dads, laziness and alcoholism is encouraged. So I'm reaching far down into the cockles of Father's Day weekend and milking out every little ounce of alcoholism and apathy that I possibly can. Although this movie is a real fucking try hard, and I kind of dug it. We're going to talk about the movie Stopmotion from 20 and 23. Some places came out and said 2024. It released last year, but it just released on Shudder recently, and this is a Shudder original.
I guess
perhaps.
Yeah, I think they call it an original. Yeah.
So one of those ones kind of being distributed by Shudder. I don't think it was an IFC film production as well. So I think that there is some tie there to the production. In any case, we're going to talk about stop motion here in a couple of dang old minutes, directed by your boy Robert Morgan. Shout out to, I don't know who the fuck Robert Morgan is. Never saw anything else from him. But this was fun. This was a fun flick. Spoiler alert. I dug it. We'll see what Steve thinks about it. I'm curious actually, because I could see you hating this movie. I don't know why. I just I could see you hating this movie. I feel like it's weird enough and just on the nose enough. Maybe I would like it just because the aesthetics, but maybe you wouldn't like it as much. I'm curious to see what you think.
Would you like to know now or wait?
Yeah, just give me a little teaser. What'd you think overall? One word.
No, I didn't hate it at all.
No?
No.
All right. Didn't hate it. Glowing review. I'm eager to jump in a little bit more. I'll explain a little bit more why maybe I thought you weren't going to like it when we talk about this some bitch movie here in a sec. But we got a couple other things we got to do at the top of the show like we always do. First of all, if you want to help us out by suggesting topics for minisodes, if you want to talk about, let us know what film we should watch and talk about, or if you've got topics that you want to suggest for the showdown episodes that happen the first Monday of every month, send them in DMs. Slide in them old DMs on the Instagram or over on the X/Twitcher. Check it out at Halloween is Forever, at Hallow Forever on Twitter. We always appreciate those suggestions, especially this time of year. Sometimes you get a week or something like that where there's nothing huge coming out. And we go, hey, let's go on the old Shudder, see what's going on. Let's do a to-be roulette now and again. If you got a suggestion, especially for something fucking kooky, throw it our way. Speaking of showdown episodes, last week we did pull 3 potential topics from that spinny ass old wheel. And both myself and Steve forgot to post on the poll, so we'll do it next week. We forgot.
We're fucking dumb.
You know what? I had a hell of a week. I was in Kansas City, sweating my tits off. Good God, it's hot down there. For work, and then coming back and doing Father's Day stuff and all that mess. So That's right. We got plenty of time, but this just gives you a little bit of time if you haven't yet, if you haven't went and followed us on the social media, so you can gain access to vote on those polls in our Instagram stories or on our Twitter feed to help us pick what our July Showdown episode is going to be. It just gives you another week to procrastinate. Procrastinating pays off. That's what we're teaching our social media friends and listeners out there. Reminder, here's what you're going to be able to choose from for the wonderful month of July for Showdown. First one is wrestling/wrestlers horror. So horror that involves wrestling or perhaps wrestling performers, professional wrestling performers showing up in them flicky flicks. We're also got cosmic horror, which is one that's come back around, but a perennial favorite of us and many of our listeners. And then future writers/directors. So this would have been, someone who perhaps this is a movie that, that they worked on before they were on the map, so to speak, or became big Hollywood writers and directors, that sort of thing. So those are our topics that you're going to get the opportunity, let's say midweek this week. We promise we'll put it up there for you to vote. And then next week, what we'll probably have to do is not only tell you what the topic's going to be, but we'll also have to pick our son of a bitch in movies as well. So we'll have to have our movies ready midweek. We also need to figure out who the hell that guest is going to be. We'll announce that as well. So, guys, if I didn't mention to you already, maybe you're new to the show. Maybe you haven't been checking us out for a little while. Maybe you're fucking stupid. You should know that we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Halloween is forever. Steve, why don't you tell them boys and ghouls over there what they can find on that Patreon if they give us a little bit of that paper monies?
You go on that Patreon, you give us the paper monies. We give you things. We give you stuff, services in return.
We give you hot tent.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of tent.
More short for content.
Yeah. You get a bunch of tent. You get tent in the form of writing. You get tent in the form of extra votes in the polls. You get tent in the form of interacting with us on the Discord. You get tent in the form of a completely separate podcast. And that podcast is Youth Group is Forever. Yeah. It's fun, guys. We did, Steve spent the last year torturing me by making me watch all the Fast and the Furious movies. So we did a series called Family is Forever, where we talk about all those fucking movies. I never saw none of them except for the first one, and it sucked and I hated it. So now I'm torturing Steve by making him watch shitty, weird, right-wing Christian propaganda horror. We already watched a movie that has Snoop Dogg in it that talks about the you're going to go to hell if you do a whole host of things, mainly if you're on a reality TV show, if you committed, I think there's an adultery message there. There's a premarital sex message there. If you play with crystals or incense or anything else that isn't Christ-like, all hell.
The power of positive thinking will send you straight to the eternal torments of hell.
You can have a mood board.
You can have a mood board, but it may summon demons.
Right. It may summon demons, and it also, you just have to realize that the mood board is a gift from Christ. So don't think that you invented the mood board. No, Christ invented the mood board. Remember, he was also a carpenter. And then in that case, he made mood boards for all the people of Jerusalem. And then they just put things up on the mood board like curing my leprosy and fishes. And they just put like little etchings of fishes up on the mood board. And then Christ would come by and he would go, oh, yeah, I can do that. Here you go. Fishes.
Yeah.
So,
water into wine, flipping over tables in merchants, money changers tables at the temple, stuff like that. And then it comes to life. Also, the movie's called Blood Pageant. Just an FYI. So check that out. We're doing another movie next. Actually, it'll be coming out here pretty darn soon. Our second movie in this series, we're doing a movie called The Lock-In, which, spoiler alert, is about not watching porn. Don't do it, guys. You'll go to hell. It's really fun. It's really fucking terrible. Come on over and sign up on a $5 a month level over on Patreon. You can tune into a whole bunch of backlogs of our Patreon exclusive podcast. I apologize. I am distracted right now because I put on a movie and I just need a little sidebar. It's called The Wickeds. Are you familiar with this, Steve, from 2005?
No.
I have no idea. I just put it on Tubi. I just did a little Tubi roulette. It appears to star one Ron Jeremy.
Oh.
And I've seen a lot of softcore porn so far. A lot of just like, not like really softcore, just like two people groping each other's butts for like 10 minutes. And then like now then someone got murdered and I just put it on. Never heard of it. Guys, I'll keep you up to speed here because this is rapidly developing into a real situation over here in the Cryptor Kel. I'm watching The Wickeds from 2005. I don't know if I'm gonna come out on the other end here, guys.
Brian has a trash storm warning, which could be turning into something much more serious.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here like trying to go through all the plugs and stuff at the top of the show. And I'm just looking at like Ron Jeremy's dirty face and it's a zombie movie. Okay. So now Ron Jeremy and another guy are fighting zombies. The whole thing looks like it was shot on an iPhone. Ron Jeremy running is troublesome. They're running through a graveyard. They're trying to do night for day. It's really or day for night. I mean, I'm sorry. Wow. And it looks really, really fucking dumb. Never heard of this movie. It looks like it costs $40. There's so much Ron Jeremy running. I'm sorry, guys. This is I'm in a hotbed of crisis over here. Is Ron Jeremy in jail? Isn't he? He's a sex criminal, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we figure out he's a sex criminal?
Yeah. Huge sex criminal. Yeah. Also, like he's dying in jail the same way like Weinstein is.
Like Charlie Manson.
No. Charlie Manson got to stay lucid and crazy the entire time. No, he's like riddled with dementia and narcolepsy and like just
really
he's just like completely falling apart. He looks terrible.
And then
he's just gonna die sad
that much worse than I don't think he can look much worse than he looks in this movie I'm watching right now. He's currently fighting a bunch of zombie women in a graveyard. The whole thing is troublesome. Wow, it's so bright outside and the lighting is changing so much from scene to scene. Anyway, guys, I gotta get off this roller coaster. Oh no. The other guy who isn't Ron Jeremy just baseball batted a head off of a zombie. Now there's a naked zombie, butt naked, and a guy just went and pushed her down. He just literally shoved her to the ground.
You gotta move on. Or you got to put a new movie on. You can't.
I can't. This episode, cancel what we're talking about. We're not going to talk about stop motion. We're talking about this movie for the next 2 hours as I experience it live. Oh no, there's so much happening. Okay, let's talk about beer. So let me get off the topic here. This is outrageous. Steve, you got a beer over there you're sipping on?
I do have a beer. And I found old beer, but I thought it's not so old. I did beat the Best By date, but it's from New Belgium. And it's their special release Oak Spire Bourbon Barrel Ale. And it's made in collaboration with Four Roses, the whiskey company. I thought it was a triple Belgian for some reason when I bought it. But it's not. It's just a strong ale at 9%. So yeah. It's I mean it has like bourbon barrel notes to it. And it's like that it feels like one of the cheapest bourbon barrel ales you could get though, because all they did was just make a really strong ale and then put bourbon barrel notes to it. And they're like, here, we're showing off the Four Roses barrel. How awesome. And it's like, no, nobody can tell what a Four Roses barrel tastes like compared to, fucking just or any other Heaven Hills fucking bullshit that like you couldn't.
Certainly not in beer either. Like,
no.
Come on. It's a marketing. So it's a bit of a marketing play.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I got tricked, but only I got tricked by myself because I didn't read well enough when I bought this. But I thought it was their triple Belgian because I really do like the triple Belgian from New Belgium. Like they had a version that was like honey and orange, and I love that.
Yum yum.
This is fine, but it's just like a cheap marketing trick to get you to buy a bourbon barrel ale. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how many can you have? Honestly, they just start to all taste the fucking same after a while too. And also, there's not going to be another one that's better than Curio from Allagash. So just fuck off. Fuck off, beer industry. Just give up on the bourbon barrel aged beers. There's not going to be a better one. And they all taste the same. I am drinking a beer that is spoiler alert, only moderately disappointing. This is a beer a friend of mine brought over it last night, had a few folks over. We sat outside, we drank some beers, we smoked some stogs. We just did just dad stuff, on the kickoff to Father's Day weekend on Friday night. I made some of them Oklahoma onion burgers on the on the flat top, where I smashed a little thin onions in there. God damn, they're good. And this beer ended up in my cooler this morning. I had one last night and it was okay. And now I'm having it upon a closer consideration, and it's kind of okay. It's called Rakova Pilsen by North Country Brewing. It's a Czech style Pilsner. North Country is a longtime brewery here in the region. It's really, their quality is typically not super great in my opinion. Not to talk too much trash, but I'm just not a big fan. Once upon a time, spent a lot of time there. The food's always all right, but the quality is hit or miss. The description sounds promising. 5.2, which is a little high for the style. Czech style Pilsner pays homage to our hometown Slippery Rock, PA. Czech Pilsner yeast, sure. Czech grown Pilsner malt, right? So they probably use the, Weyermann's floor malted Bow Pils. That's great. And Saaz hops. So, okay. You used all the authentic Czech ingredients, but you could just tell the process just isn't there. And for Czech beers, that's a bit of a passion point for me. The process is every bit, if not more important than the ingredients. So, obviously not something they're decocting. They did not lager it particularly well. The fermentation regime does not seem exactly on par with what you would expect from a beer like this. It just tastes like they made a lager with those ingredients in the same fashion they make all their other lagers, right? Yeah. It's a little bit harshly bitter. It's kind of like, I don't mind like kind of an unfiltered, unpasteurized version of a Czech Pils, because you could certainly find plenty of those. So I'm not expecting it to be like super long lager, super clear, but it's kind of harsh around the edges. Foam retention sucks. Malt complexity is not there. It's a average lager made with Czech ingredients, not really a Czech style production method. So
it sounds like a homebrew with just a little bit better equipment put behind it and made it, mass.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is someone who likes Czech lagers, doesn't know how to make them, and decided to do one. That's rude. Sorry, that's exactly what it tastes like. I know exactly what this fucking beer's supposed to taste like, and this ain't it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, not to belabor the point on North Country, but they've never been known as like a lagering brewery either. Like when they first came out, they did like the same kind of IPA red. All those base styles, IPA red porter. Yeah. They did all those.
Yeah, they did. They did the 90s brew pub lineup forever.
Yeah. And then they had
which is fine. Do that, man.
Yeah. They had a pretty decent sour program too.
Yeah, I feel like that was when Meg was there. She kind of turned up she kind of helped them figure that out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So when Meg was working there, she gave them a good sour program because it was decent. Like they had like really good sours coming out of there. And then after Meg's gone, I haven't seen anything that's even sparked my interest, but now you're telling me they're doing lagers and it's like, bruv, nuh-uh, you ain't there.
No, there's nothing offensive about it, in the sense that it's not like, wild off flavors. It's a little bit harshly bitter, which is fine. Like there's plenty of Czech lagers, especially like unfiltered and pasteurized, like fresher versions that might be a little bit more aggressively hopped and more aggressively bitter. Yeah, it's just like I said, it doesn't. Nothing else strikes as Czech besides the ingredients. The process ain't there, but hey, I'm enjoying it. It's fine. I'm probably being overly harsh. In any case, let's get them, you sons of bitches.
We don't work for them. Go get their ass.
Go. The thing that also is alarming is I have some really great fresh Pilsner Kel too that I was drinking alongside it, and just side by side. It just ain't gonna hit like that. Ain't gonna hit like that. Few do. Anyway, let's get into this son of a bitchin' movie. Now, this just popped up on there's a lot of fun stuff on Shudder right now that I'm excited to watch. Been busy as a son of a bitch. Haven't got to watch a whole lot of horror. Also been reading a lot of horror. And actually, I've been reading a lot of sci-fi too. I got through that. I finished that Laird Barron book that I was reading, which I really like, book of short stories. And then I started reading, which I thought I had read, but I don't think I have. I think I just saw a movie version of it when I was a kid, or like knew what it was about. But I love Ray Bradbury, but only like a few of his books am I super familiar with. Something Wicked This Way Comes, one of my favorite books of all time. The Halloween Tree, one of my favorite books of all time. But I came to the realization that I had never read Fahrenheit 451.
Oh.
It was one of those ones where like you're just like, oh yeah, I read that in middle school, right? Or what, high school.
Right, yeah.
But then I bought a used copy of it. I started reading, I was like, I know what this is about, but I don't think I've ever read this. And it's a short read, right? So I started reading it yesterday. I'm almost done with it. And then I also started reading simultaneously. I finally took the jump because everybody's like, you'll love it. You got to read it. And I was always like, this looks fucking, I'm not that into it. But I finally took the jump and started reading Dune.
Oh.
So doing the Dune, it's one of those ones where it's like, it's been in the zeitgeist for so long. Of course, now there's the movies about it. So it's even more in the zeitgeist. And I was always like, I kind of know enough about it that it's going to fuck me up. Like it's going to not make me as interested because I kind of know it's going to happen. Not that I know the story, but I get it. There's fucking sandworms, right? It's fucking, it's Beetlejuice or sandworms. And people, and the spice and the mining of the spice and like all that stuff I already knew before I read it.
Right.
But I'm honest, it's pretty fucking good. It's pretty fucking good. I'm not going to lie. It's wild how many things I didn't realize were references to Dune until I started reading Dune, which I'm not sure about this. You might know. And this is one that I just kind of came to the realization today is, you know how on Mystery Science Theater 3000, they do the like movie sign.
Yeah.
They're like movie sign, I think that's a Dune reference.
Oh, is it? So I've never read Dune. Oh, Dune is like never appealed to me really. So like I've never seen the Lynch movie. Same. I've never seen the new movies. I'll watch the new movies once like all three of them are out because I do really like Denis Villeneuve, but I haven't. I just haven't gotten into that. Yeah. So
yeah, they do like a sandworm sign kind of thing, like when they see that there's like a sandworm coming or whatever, and they all like panic. And so I really think that maybe somebody can hear this and confirm whether this is true or not. I could probably just do a light Google would figure it out.
Right.
But I feel like it's a Dune reference. Anyway, It's a pretty entertaining book. I'm only about maybe less than 200 pages into a fucking 700 page book. It's all three books in one.
Okay.
So I'm making my way through that. So I got some big old juicy reads because I got that, and I also bought finally I'm gonna read The Talisman, which is also like 700 freaking pages, which is Peter Straub, who does Ghost Story, which is one of my favorite books. And then, of course, Mr. Stephen King. So I'm going to finally read The Talisman, which, again, is also like 750 pages. So for some reason, I'm just planning on torturing myself with enormous fucking books this summer. But
sure, knock yourself out. Have fun. See if you can get your Pizza Hut coupon by the end.
Oh, man, I'm booking it. Boys. So complete sidetrack there talking about my reads. But there's a lot of good stuff on the Shudder that I've been neglecting because I've been doing all this other shit. One of which is, of course, the movie we're going to talk about today, 20 and 23 Stop Motion. Steve, I mentioned at the top of the show, Robert Morgan is the director and also a co-writer on this. Are you familiar with a Robert Morgan? Because I was looking through and I am not.
I was not either. The only thing I would be familiar with his work is from the ABCs of Death 2. I've definitely seen that movie, so I have seen his work in that. He did the segment D is for Deloused, but I haven't seen any of his other short films, which most of them all appear to be like stop motion. So he did ABC's of Death 2 in 2014, and then he produced like 4 little short films, which also all appear to be like stop motion, and then he does direct the stop motion portions in this film. So
very cool. Yeah, which are awesome. I mean, and we've talked about this before. I grew up watching Harryhausen films and just being a stop motion nerd. So this immediately appealed to me, and they do some cool stuff in here too. But yeah, I had not been familiar with any of his other works. Also, as far as the actors in here, not a lot of stuff that I've seen, with the exception of the main character, Ella Blake. She is played by Aisling Franciosi.
Yeah.
And she was in Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Okay.
But otherwise not familiar with her. But I feel like I've seen her face more often than that. But yeah, I feel like she probably pops up in small characters. But I thought she was great in this. Otherwise, not super familiar with a lot of other people in here. Stella Gannett, I imagine it's Gannett, plays her mom, Suzanne Blake. Tom York, not that Tom York, plays a boyfriend in this, Tom, and he looks very familiar, but I don't know what I know him from necessarily. Now I'm looking down through and there's nothing that's popping right out at me, but he did look quite familiar. Did he pop out at you at all?
No, it's possible I saw the episode of Midsummer Murders he was on, but I don't remember him. So
yeah. I think what it is he looks like any, and this is no disrespect, it's just aesthetically, he's British as well. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, but he looks like any number of like weird right-wing like social media personalities. Doesn't
a little
he?
bit.
He looks
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Who's that one super dildo who he has like the podcast everybody listens to and stuff? He's like a super big.
That does not narrow it down because that's all right.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. But what's the big one? He's like a super big right. He like goes to colleges and speaks. Again, I'm also not really doing a good job.
Oh, no, because here's the thing. I think you're thinking of Ben Shapiro, right?
I am thinking of Ben Shapiro. He fucking kind of looks like Ben Shapiro to me, and that's why I think I thought he was, which, I mean, the most infinitely fucking punchable face you can imagine. Yeah,
the only problem with that comparison is like this guy is easily over 6 foot. Ben Shapiro is like 4'11".
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying. He's a little tiny boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a little he's a little tiny boy with little brittle bones. And
that's why he has bird bones. That's why I couldn't make the connection, because I was like, no, this guy's really tall. He could never be a Ben Shapiro type.
It's just in the face. It's purely in the face.
Yeah.
We also have Tariq, I think it's Tarika, forgive me if that's wrong. Tarika Wilson Reed playing Polly. Fairly unknown cast, which we've talked about before. I always love, because then you just kind of don't know, if a big name shows up in something, something either impactful is going to happen or they're going to last longer or whatever. I love that this was just like relatively unknown people.
There is something to be said about like an unknown cast, like just really providing for that immersion. Like, obviously, the most famous example is the Blair Witch Project, where, like, you literally thought you were watching 3 fucking dummies from Nowheresville go to other Nowheresville and chase sticks. So, and you believed it, but...
Chase sticks. Yeah, that's a good summation of what they're doing. So, this movie is a little, I would call this almost... It's definitely got plenty of horror elements. It's got some definite gory elements. But very much a psychological thriller vibes right up until shit starts to get kind of brutal, which I really, really dug. It's also a pretty vague kind of esoteric elements where it's like, hey, you figured out what's happening. Right. But then there's other elements that are, I would go as far as to say, on the nose a little bit. So it's a weird mix, because normally movies are really subjective. It's really just up in the air for you to determine what you think is happening, or it's, what's that shitty Aronofsky? Yeah, what's that shitty Aronofsky movie?
Which
one?
I
know. Mother. The one with
Mother,
is it
Noah.
Mother? Yeah. Mother, where it's just
Requiem
like
for a Dream.
So force fed to you. This was kind of weirdly in the middle, because there were certain things that felt like they were really, really obvious, but then other things that were pretty vague. But overall, I liked it. Highly kind of a lot of symbolism, a lot of internal conflict. I would go as far as to say this, like, themes of generational trauma, identity, grief for sure. I would assume mental illness, right? So there's a lot of pretty esoteric topics.
Yeah. And I would even say like this movie, interestingly, because of the nature, it is basically just following this woman as she descends into madness. And because you follow her into madness and you're not really given anything from the outside, she just, goes in and then you go in with her and then that's it. Mm-hmm. It becomes more vague and like more hard to pierce the veil of what you're seeing and what you're being told. Like, especially the last 5 minutes is just kind of like, I don't know, you make it up, fuckface. You figure it out.
Yeah. It becomes really, really open-ended at the end.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if you're not willing to figure that out, you're probably not going to like it. But I don't know. I actually really like this movie because it
good. I liked it too.
Yeah, because it has that kind of just descent into madness. And I don't know, I see myself in the protagonist because she lives in squalor, disassociating all day, just doing her little projects. And that's what I do with my life. I don't, I don't talk to people. I sleep at weird hours and I just do my little projects. I design furniture on Blender that I don't show anybody. And, like don't talk to me. I'm doing something and I disappear for hours at a time into Blender or into After Effects. And I come out and I go, oh, it's 3 PM. Well, whatever. Oh, it's dinner time. So I get all that. I haven't gotten to the part where I'm tearing pieces of myself out because I haven't figured out the interface, but I get it.
Yeah. So I like, so a couple things to unpack there. One, didn't anticipate you connecting on such a personal level. I love it for you. I also am now anticipating you building furniture out of your own flesh and bones, like cutting your leg off, fashioning furniture out of your body. I like that idea a lot for you. Yes. And here's what, getting back to what I mentioned earlier, the thing that I was concerned that you wouldn't like about it was a couple of things. One, it's pretty slow at times, and I feel like some of the times it's slow that they're really taking their time is with the things that we kind of already understand at face value what's happening, right? Like specifically the relationship with Ella and the little girl. Yeah. You pretty much determine within 5 seconds that it's her subconscious. It's some layer of her subconscious that she's trying to get in touch with. But they really stretch that out like it's going to be a big reveal. And then they eventually make the concession, like they eventually just come out with it. And then the movie, I feel like, can move on. But for some reason, they waited a long time to. It's like we were sitting there with a sculpture with this is a weird analogy. I apologize in advance. There's a sculpture with a sheet over it, but the sheet is transparent and we can see exactly what the sculpture is. But then you pull it off and you're like, ta-da! And you're like, yeah, we saw it. It was a transparent sheet. You know what I mean? So it felt like they waited a long time to do that.
We were there.
But,
so again, it's subjective. For you and I, we're old and jaded. And so I think it's by the second time she comes to the apartment. I was like, it was like a confirmation for me. But like, in the early scenes, we see her like just kind of walking around being rude to Ella. And there's a scene where Ella hears her singing and goes out to look to find her, but all she sees is her neighbors. So like, that's your first clue. Like, oh, little girl doesn't exist. And then
I swear, as soon as she walked into the room and Ella didn't freak out on her for touching the puppets, I was like, oh, it's because she doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but again, we are old and jaded.
Yeah, she kind of freaked out on her for touching the puppets. But like, when she exits the scene, she drops a juice box just on the floor and leaves. And I was like, what kind of shit kid does that? Oh, a kid that doesn't exist.
Well, and not just the touching the puppet, but you hit the nail on the head. It's basically all the rude things she's doing. Ella doesn't seem like the type of person who would stand for that, except for that little girl is her. So of course she's tolerant of the whole thing. Yeah. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But let's kick it off, because one of the more like I keep using this phrase. It might not even be the word that it's not even the ideal word that I'm looking to express here, but the kind of more vague esoteric element of it is the one part that's very subjective, very up for interpretation, is this image of a kind of black/blue egg. It looks like a dang old alien egg on the screen. And we get it very early on, and then it's not revisited for a long time, but we just see this thing. And besides its shape, you really have no other indication that it's an egg. It is confirmed later that it is in fact an egg. But it just pops up on screen. You don't know why, you don't know where. You just get this kind of like heavy droning music. I really was sucked in super early with this film and the relationship between Ella and Suzanne. So Ella is the daughter, Suzanne is her mother. Suzanne is a famous I would go as far as to say, like, I think they literally use the word legendary stop motion filmmaker and animator.
Yeah, they're basically trying to sell her as Phil Tippett is what they're trying to sell her as.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. But Phil Tippett's hands still work. But yeah, it's like, so the whole idea is she's a Phil Tippett. She's extremely like a perfectionist, almost obsessive about her work. I would say the only thing, I guess Phil Tippett does this too, as far as I am concerned. But like Phil Tippett has like a whole team of people who work with him, like in real life.
Right.
Whereas Suzanne and Ella almost treat it in a strangely spiritual, like their stop motion animation project is almost like their lifestyle is almost like that of a monk.
Yeah.
Like or a nun in a monastery.
Yeah.
So they have this very monastic existence. They wear these very special, like almost now maybe there's some more significance to these like smock style robes that they wear. And I don't know if that's just something they wear to, like, if there's a functional reality to those garbs or whether that's just some weird thing that they do. But they wear a specific garb. They get up super early in the morning. Like they have all these kind of rituals that they have to play out as they're, working on their project.
Yeah, that I think the smock is also just meant for the later visual language of making the parallel between Ella and the Cyclops. We get towards the end of the film, that parallel vision of Ella in her smock rewatching the Cyclops, and she sees, or not rewatching the Cyclops, but rewatching, the video of herself that looks very much like the Cyclops film that we see at the beginning of this. So it's like poetry, it rhymes. So so we get that kind of comparison. Another thing I just wanted to point out, like we mentioned how like Phil Tippett has like a huge team and everything. He doesn't live like this crazy monk, but there is an episode, I don't know if you've watched this show, but the show Poker Face. It stars Natasha Lyonne. It was written by Ryan Johnson, who does the Knives Out movies. But he has an episode. I love the show Poker Face, but he has an episode that is like an homage to Phil Tippett and has like Phil Tippett doing stop motion for the episode. And Nick Nolte plays basically Phil Tippett in the show and also plays him as like this like gruesome, kind of hermit who just like, yeah. And it like, it leads to a murder mystery and there's like a lot of fantastic Phil Tippett stop motion in it. Like the show fucking rules. And
it sounds awesome. Now I need to go watch it. I'm looking it up right now. Poker Face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For whatever people may think about Ryan Johnson and like the Knives Out movies or even The Last Jedi, because I know he gets a lot of shit for all that stuff, but like Poker Face is one of the best TV shows like ever. So I don't know.
One season.
Yep.
Oh, is it still on? It's 2023.
Oh yeah.
Season 2 is a new show.
Yeah, season 2 is coming out eventually.
Oh, and it's on the Peacock. I got it. All right. I have to check that out. For some reason, when you said that, I just assumed it was an older show. Like I didn't realize it was still on. And because first time I've ever heard of it. That's great. Yeah. I like the Knives Out movies. The Knives Out movies to me are kind of like, I I think it's like what Fast and the Furious is to other people a little bit, maybe. Like that might be disrespectful to the movies, but
No,
they're just
it's
like
not.
they're silly, over dramatic, overacted, caricature. His mystery movie. You know, they're just kind of pulpy mystery novels almost. You know what I mean? With cartoonish characters, and I fucking love them. I fucking love them. So
he's doing a new American version of the Perot books. So like
I completely forgot. That's like the Murder on the Orient Express is such a, like that's actually one of my favorite mystery. Who plays there's a really famous actor
Kenneth
plays
Branagh.
a really. Does he play? No,
he
I'm thinking
he
of one.
played the most recent one.
No, this one's from like the 70s. There's a great version of okay, I know where this is there's a lot of tangents, and I don't even give a shit on this right now in this episode.
You're thinking of Albert Finney is
Albert Finney. Fuck yes. Albert Finney as Hercule Poirot in the 1974 version is so fucking great. But there's actually other ones that are really I just love those types of movies.
I mean that's a killer cast all around because it's Lauren Bacall,
Albert Finney also. Yes,
Sean Connery, Jacqueline Bisset. Like it's a
fucking Sean Connery. I forgot he's in that. Oh man,
Anthony
and
Perkins.
Albert Finney's the best. Yeah, it's a star-studded cast. I'm telling you, if you've not seen the 1974 version of Murder on the Orient Express, Albert Finney. Also, you'll remember him as the most underrated Ebenezer Scrooge of all time. He does the musical version, the thank you very much, that version, which is so underrated. It is a blast. It's a little long. It's over 2 hours, but by today's standards, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's
Ingrid
fine.
Bergman, Lauren Bacall, fucking fantastic. Go check it out. You're gonna love it. It's probably streaming for free on 90 different things.
Right.
Why the fuck are we talking about this? What levels had we expanded beyond this movie to get to Ingrid Bergman and fucking Lauren Bacall? And
we went deep ADHD brain of just we went to Poker Face, which was murder mysteries, which was Ryan Johnson, who also his other murder mysteries. To Perot.
Poker Face.
Yeah. It's a long deep chain, but hey.
This is what happens when you take a 3.5 hour nap in the afternoon, like I did today, because I had to get up at like 2:30 in the morning to get a flight from Kansas City yesterday. So I was up for like 24 hours, slept like 5 hours last night, and then took like a 3.5 hour nap in the afternoon, and I just have fucking poo brains now.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you have energy and poo brains all in the wrong places.
Yeah. And I just chugged coffee. Now I'm drinking beer. My brain's fucked right now.
Hell yeah. Put it in the blender. Fuck it.
Fuck it. I'm going to do mushrooms tonight just for the hell of it.
Hell yeah. Before we went off on that tangent, you were saying how they set up the relationship between Ella and her mother. And
yes.
I love it too because it is so simply told between just the way her mother is kind of just sitting there breathing down her neck, and immediately the first thing we're given is Ella disassociating of she is in her own world posing a maquette of a cyclops, and she doesn't really hear anything that's going on. We just it's everything is low and in the background. We just kind of hear her own breathing as she poses it, and then it slowly is brought up because her mother is like yelling at her to do it the way her mom wants it to be done. And eventually that breaks into the soundtrack and we finally hear it at like a normal level, and then Ella snaps in, and it's just like that simple like way of connecting each other. And like, what the dynamic is right away.
Yeah. They do a wonderful succinct job of show not tell. To really communicate all the intricacies of a very complicated relationship between Ella and her mom. Her mom, like we mentioned, being that legendary stop motion animator, and you kind of assume early on that the daughter, that Ella is like her kind of protege, which she is, but the mom is so eccentric, she's so overbearing, and Ella is trying to find her way. And she's very, very dedicated to the whole thing. And she does have her own life outside. And we learn early on that Suzanne, the mom, has some degenerative disease or disorder that she is 100% reliant on Ella to do the animation. So she's giving her direction, 1 millimeter to this direction, to this, and she's very, very frustrated internally because she's not the one that can do it because her hands, there's some sort of issue with her hands. We later learn that
arthritis.
She has we later learn on it's like intense arthritis. So Ella is her hands now. And she's very committed to helping her, but she's at that point in her life where she wants to step out and do her own thing. The mom is like, this is, there's kind of a mutual understanding between them that this is like her mom's last film, and she's just going to help her finish this film. And then she can kind of go off and do her own thing. Ella is trying to get her to allow her to do a little bit of her own thing in this film, and Suzanne is just not ready to let her do that and is very uncompromising in that way. You do get introduced pretty early on to another character, which is Tom, which is Ella's boyfriend, which is the stretched out Ben Shapiro looking guy that I mentioned earlier. It's disrespectful to equate him to a turd like that, but he's fine in the movie. But he also plays a little bit of a dickhead, so like he does a good job of that. But the performance is great. He is very encouraging of Ella. And wants her to break out on her own. So he's trying to empower her to do that with her mom. It's creating some friction, obviously. And because she takes care of her mom. She is trying to hold on to her independence, but literally she's like cutting up her food for her, that sort of thing. So she's really rapidly losing her independence and becoming really frustrated and kind of resentful, I would say, also as a result.
Yeah. We also get like very early on as part of that like care, like as she's cutting up her mom's dinner, it's just like a gross plate of food, just the way it's filmed. Like it's filmed on this real close up with all this harsh lighting, and you get this motif started because it comes through the entire film that just like meat is fucking gross and it's off-putting.
It's flesh. Like all the meat, even the food in this is supposed to look like flesh. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't look like meat. Yeah, it doesn't look appetizing. Yeah.
So that's all gross. The other thing that we kind of get a start on, it's only really kind of visited once or twice, but when we are introduced to kind of the rest of the gang, because Ella goes out and she goes out to away from her house, which when we're in the house, it's all very quiet. It's somber. The soundtrack is more or less non-existent, with the exception of just like heavy breathing or droning, like a tinnitus going on. Then when she goes out into the world, like it's all bright and it's colors, and we're at like the jumping bar, and Tom's there with Tom's sister Polly, and Polly has like she also is like a stop motion animator, but she works at a corporate animation house. So like
she's like a commercial animator.
Yeah. So like all her projects are just like corporate shit to sell, so to sell a product. Yeah. It's not like actual art the way Ella sees what she's doing at home with her mom.
Yeah. And she kind of views herself and takes some pride in this, but it's very much a product of her mom's not only position, but or her mom's kind of attitude towards it, but also her mom's fame, undoubtedly, and success, is that Ella views her art as her life, her job, her livelihood, everything. And the art is number one priority, and like commercial success is like less than a concern. For Polly and for Tom, because Tom's not an animator, but he's a musician, but he works in, I think it's like real estate, I would assume, right? He's like a real estate agent or something like that. Yeah. But he also works in some entity or in some capacity there, perhaps with Polly, but it suggests that like he is a real estate agent. That's what I took it as, because he hooks her up with an apartment later. Anyway, they have day jobs that they either use to support their art or integrate their art, and this would be something that would be like insulting to Ella and Suzanne for sure. But they have the luxury of Suzanne is, she is a, she's obviously riding off the coattails of her mom to a certain extent too. Like she's enabled to spend so much time with her art because, not cronyism. What's it called when
nepotism?
When it's your family? Nepotism. Yeah. So she's a little bit of a nepo baby in that sense too.
Yeah, she's a bit of a nepo baby because like right now she gets to work with her mom on her mom's final film, but also she has this expectation of herself that she too is also special. So she should not lower herself to the realm of doing corporate gigs. She should just have it in her to be, exemplary or, special in a way. So like she shouldn't lower herself and others should treat her, in a better regard is just like a thought she has about herself, which gets disproven multiple times.
Right. So now, they're kind of having this, the animosity is building a little bit between Ella and Suzanne. And ultimately, during the course of one of their kind of animating sessions, Suzanne just has a stroke, right? Has like a massive stroke. It also kind of manifests itself, either her feelings or maybe she kind of loses control. You don't really get it, but she like almost attacks Ella during this episode of her having a stroke. And then we flash over to, kind of shit starts getting fuzzy. And then Ella's kind of losing her connection with reality a little bit. And she starts to see these visions of her mother while they're at the hospital. Like the mother is obviously, they explain, in a coma. She's non-responsive. She's almost in like a vegetative state. She's on a ventilator. But Ella is convinced at this point that she needs to finish her mother's film. That is her purpose. She's got to go do this. So Tom is, trying to be the supportive boyfriend here. Like I said, he's in real estate or something, but he has keys to this empty apartment. He sets Ella up with this empty apartment to work in, and then she insists that she needs to live there. He's like, you can come stay with me. She's like, no, I need to live there. She wants to be very immersed in her art. That's what she's used to. So she was going to live in this empty apartment and work on her mom's film at the same time. That's where she meets the girl. So this little girl, this young girl, I would say 11 years old, roughly, somewhere in that range. And she's just kind of creeping about the building. She immediately kind of runs in and she's touching stuff. She's asking questions, but she intuitively knows things about the stop motion animation process, which again is a little bit of a clue immediately that she is doesn't exist and she's part of Ella's subconscious or something of that nature. And she's giving Ella all these, she's very opinionated and she's very confident about this is what you should be doing. This is how it should be going. And Ella can't help herself but start to take that advice from the little girl. And then she begins to kind of struggle to do the project without somebody's direction, specifically her mother's direction. So she can't really do it without her mother telling her what to do. She's never been on her own. She hasn't kind of learned that skill set. And the little girl pops up and starts to show Ella how kind of what she should be doing. And in turn, you think Ella is teaching her, but in reality, it's almost the opposite. Like you mentioned, the kid's kind of a little prick, but for whatever reason, Ella has like a lot of patience for her. She's proposing this story like, hey, fuck your mom's project, start something new, make it your own. And it's about this lost girl in the woods. And then Ella starts to imagine and dream about what this story is. So again, it's pretty evident at this point that the little girl is part of Ella. But so she's becoming like more Ella is becoming more like exhausted and stressed, and it starts to become like hard to tell what's real and what isn't. That's a reoccurring thing in this whole movie.
Yeah, which is great. They do a couple things, not necessarily to help you discern what's what, but one of them is the editing becomes far more like not so much frenetic in that the cuts are quick, but it becomes cuts of missing time where like
very layered, elaborate, missing time. You know what I mean? Like layers on layers kind of thing with the editing.
Yeah. So you'll be in one scene and it'll seemingly cut almost in the middle of that scene, and you'll be in a completely different time, place, and day. Like, you have you lose orientation of like how much time is passing with each cut. And that's because like Ella is full on, dissociating again. And she's just like moves through life and occasionally gets snapped out of it by like Tom or Polly. And then, it's because she's just working on this project by herself and, comes to occasionally. She comes back to reality. The other thing they do is, and it's especially apparent in the apartment where she works, there's this completely unmotivated green light. And the green light is basically just like sickness and madness is what it represents. But when Ella is in the apartment, sometimes it is like at a halftone, and this usually happens when she's arguing with basically the little girl, but arguing with herself about how to do the project because she's fighting against the madness in a way. And you'll get these half cast tones of like half of her face will be cast in green and the other half in red, and she's fighting against the madness. But then there are scenes where like the madness takes over, and either she's fully cast in green or the project she's working on is like cast in green. And at that point, oh, she's gone. Like she's gone for this time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yes. There's a lot of her trying to remain lucid. And kind of almost like she's fighting sleep, but she's fighting falling into, this degree of madness and disassociation. The other interesting thing I really liked is you right away that the girl doesn't exist, that she's part of her, but then you get introduced to this. I'm getting a little bit ahead, but you're getting into the idea of this character called the Ashman. So let me get up to that point because we're pretty close. She's explaining to the little girl she's using this mortician's wax. She's just kind of kneading it in her fingers, and I don't know if they use it on the project or whatever. She's kneading it in her fingers, and she's essentially saying like, "Hey, you need to use that to make a little girl. To make the character that's going to be the new main character, the protagonist in your project." And she immediately starts to do this. Ella starts to kind of follow her lead. Like I said, Ella's neglecting her life and her own mental health for sure. And her mom is like in this coma, so she's kind of using it to disassociate as well. Polly, who, like we mentioned, is Tom's sister, shows up. This is where we get that little thing where she's basically like, "You can come work for us in advertising," and Ella's like kind of says no, but it does say it in a little bit of a condescending, like, "Oh, you want me to work on adverts?" You know what I mean? And she's like, so again, she's a little bit condescending in the sense that like, that's below me. And at that point you're like, well, Polly's just trying to help. You're not really sure how to take that. Ultimately, the little girl shows up and is just like really critical of how the new project is going and tells her, "No, this is bullshit. You need to make a new figure out of raw meat." And then she starts slowly revealing the story to Ella. And she's like learning the beats of the story, and they're playing around with it on screen. They're kind of cutting back and forth between Ella and the little girl in quote unquote real life, and then the actual animation that they're watching, the finished scenes of. So that's where you get introduced to this character of the Ashman. So the Ashman, it's pretty clear, right? The Ashman is death in some capacity. It's
in
death,
some form.
It's fear of the unknown, whatever it is, right? So it's this primitive lizard brain fear thing that it represents, is how I guess I would describe it. But I was taking it very much like literally earlier that it was going to be her mom's impending death, because of course her mom's in like a coma. She's on a ventilator. Her days are numbered, right? So the Ashman is her mom's impending death, and then she's the little girl, and then she's going to have to grow up and become an independent woman. All the single ladies. But it's not really how it. That's certainly not how it plays out.
No.
And I don't know if that was intentional, like an intentional misdirect, or if that's just how I perceived it.
Yeah. I read something else into it as well, but I wasn't quite sure that maybe I was reading too much into it in a way. But so the way the story progresses is like it's basically we're back and forth between Ella fighting the madness, and like she's out in the world trying to fight the madness, but then she winds up back in the studio anyway, and then is working with herself as the little girl. And the little girl is very persistent about how things have to be done, similar to her mom in a way, but like she's persistent about the way things have to be done. And one of the times is Ella trying to change the story. And this is where I read something more into it that I maybe doesn't actually exist. But Ella tries to change the story, and the little girl says, "No, you can't change it." As if to say, like, this, I know how the story goes, and it plays out this way, so you can't change it. And I'm wondering, like, since it's coming from the child version of Ella, is this like a retelling of something traumatic that happened to Ella in the past? And by the child saying, like, you can't change it because it's already happened this way. And so it's disingenuous it didn't play out this way, so you can't tell it this way. Oh,
that's great. Yeah, you might be right. So let me provide for the audience a little bit of context of how the story goes. And this is the little girl dictating the story to Ella, and then Ella is really animating this. And she basically says the Ashman is coming for her, and the Ashman is the story says he comes for 3 nights, and the first night he sees her, and the second night he touches her. And then the third night, you really don't. There's a lot of mystery about what's going to happen the third night. So, yeah, I took that because Ella is saying, like, no, that's not what we're going to do. At some point, she tries to stand up to the little girl and say, like, no, fuck you. This is not what's going to happen. Like you said, the little girl is really dictating what needs to happen, and she's trying to get Ella to take these further and further leaps. She takes her out to the woods, shows her a dead fox, and is like, you need to make the Ashman out of the dead fox.
Which, by the way, I don't know how this has come about. Maybe this is something that's always been, and I just haven't noticed it, but I feel like Lars von Trier is the real culprit behind this, of turning foxes into these symbols of death and evil. But maybe it's just a thing that's always been in British culture because they don't actually have any real predators on their island. Like they don't have like anything that can actually hurt them, so they just go with foxes. They're like,
well, foxes are I think the symbolism of foxes is a fox is a thief in the night.
Yeah,
a fox comes and eats your chickens,
right,
and kills your livestock.
Yeah,
and that's about as good as they can get in the in the UK. They ain't got no damn bears and mountain lions and fucking rattlesnakes and killer spiders and shit that we have.
We have mountain lions that scream like women in the night. That's terrifying. Like no wonder.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that's like no wonder why all of our ancestors thought there were witches in the woods, because it was just giant cats that also kill, screaming like women.
North America's terrifying. It's not Australia terrifying, but it's fucking terrifying.
No.
Terrifying
to the British.
Terrifying to the British, who like the British, their wilderness is a bounce house. Like there's just nothing to fucking worry about. Like you might step on a hedgehog and prick your little tootsies, you fucking pussies.
You might see a badger and it looks at you sideways.
We just started bashing on the UK all of a sudden. Anyway, so it's weird because I like your analogy here of she's trying to change it. And here's what I took it as. It was the battle against the generational trauma, but also potentially like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not generational, but mental illness that was passed down. like genetics.
Genetically inherited is.
Yeah, genetically inherited mental illness. That's how I took it as, of like, I'm going to try to change it. And the little girl's like, nah, you can try, but that ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I'm convinced that your theory was the intention, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because the whole idea of like, you know, the potential for like abuse in her past, I think feels, by the way she's treating it, by the verbiage she's using, I could see that was part of it too. That maybe there was a sexual abuse or something like that in her past.
Yeah, but also I can see I could also see that it maybe is just straightly a more metaphor for mental illness, as you know, like the first night the Ashman sees you, and it's like, okay, like it's more of like her getting a first glimpse through her mother of the kind of mental illness, because it is implied that like her mom is similarly minded, and her mom comes out straightly and just says, I can control it, but you can't. You can't.
Yeah. That's what I was just about to get to. Yeah.
You can't control the obsession the way I can, and you just don't have
and
the power.
And it wasn't the mom saying that. It was actually Ella saying that to herself.
Right.
Because she goes into and that's perfect timing. We were getting into the next, I was just about to get to the scene where she goes and sees her mom. Of course, her mom is still in the hospital, is in a coma. She's non-responsive. And Ella starts to animate her mother, literally touching her hand and moving her hand and then taking a picture with her phone. And it's just a quick little glimpse. But obviously what they're looking to communicate, because she talks about it earlier when she's talking to the little girl, is the idea of bringing something to life, an inanimate object to life. Her mom is essentially a vegetable, right? She's an inanimate object, and she's bringing her to life by moving her hand and taking the pictures. And then all of a sudden the mom starts talking. Of course, we know this isn't really happening. It's Ella talking to herself, and that's when she reveals the like, mom could control this and perhaps even harness the hyper focus that comes along with, who knows what it is, OCD, paranoid schizophrenia, whatever mental illness she's dealing with. I'm not going to try to diagnose it, but she can deal with it. She can harness it. She can process it and control it. And Ella can't.
Yeah.
And that's Ella telling herself she can't, or knowing herself that she can't, perhaps.
Yeah. And it's also neat, just in that scene where she's animating her mother, in the sound design, you can mistake it as her like bumping the bed, but there's like metal creaking as if she was moving an armature as she's moving her bumps on.
I missed that.
So like you
can the sound design's fantastic, we should say, in this movie. Yeah. There are a couple of sound driven jump scares, which are not even things that I like normally. I don't even really have that much patience for, but are really, really well done. And boy, do they jack the volume up in certain instances too, which I love too. I was watching my basement at like high volume, and I was just like, they just really play with the sound design really well. So Ella finally goes to Tom's sister, to Polly, and says, like, because she had mentioned about like, hey, you're super creative, blah, blah, blah. I have to do hallucinogenics basically to get to that layer of imagination. And this is in her biggest kind of moment of doubt. Ella decides, like, I don't have the imagination to do this on my own. I need, hallucinogens. I don't know I think it's acid that she goes to get off of her. And she goes into the room, and you assume as the viewer that she's now went and taken this acid. And she goes into this room where there's like a ventriloquist dummy, like projection on the wall. You're just in this kind of trippy, weird, artsy fartsy club, bar club. And you're not really sure what's real, what's not. There's a woman who has like eyes painted on her eyelids. You're not really sure what is actually there and what Ella is just imagining. But we have this kind of, and this is where it kind of started to drag a little bit for me, if there was a moment, is this psychedelic wandering scene that we're not really sure what it's supposed to mean. I think they did a good job of wrapping it up, because during this time I was like kind of annoyed. Like, is this the psychedelic scene? Like, this is kind of dumb. But then nothing truly psychedelic is really happening. There's a lot of just things that could be real happening on screen. It's not like Fear and Loathing when everyone's turning into a fucking lizard and the floor's water. Like, it's not that. It's just her seeing kind of weird things that maybe an artsy fartsy club would have there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's at like a weird underground after hours party, and like she's just seen a bunch of goofy shit that like people in the art scene would try to portray as like, this is who I am. This is, let's watch this 15-minute film of a dummy on a wall. It's like, kind of it's somewhat obnoxious, but not really. It depends on your mindset, how you're feeling.
Sure.
I did want to say, I don't know what it was, but while watching this scene, my mind wandered itself. But the song that's playing in this scene, for whatever reason, just made me want to take that song and cut it to an edit of the most psychedelic moments of Apocalypse Now. I don't know why, but there's just something about that song with like the drums and the psych rock to it. I was like, yeah, man, I just want to put Lance playing with the fucking the colored flares on the front of the boat and whatever Dennis Hopper's up to, and just cut Apocalypse Now to that. And it's like, I don't know why. I'm not thinking about this movie for whatever reason, so I'm thinking about that.
Oh, in that moment, it felt like, that was the vibe they were going for sure. Here's the psychedelic break, where we start to lose connections with reality. And like, this is the part in Apocalypse Now or in other movies with like psychedelic themes where you start to question what is real and what isn't. But weirdly in this, everything seems pretty grounded for the most part, besides the music. And then she goes and like finds Tom, and she's like, let's go bang. And then they go bang. And she's like kneading his skin. Not in a overly bizarre way. Well, bizarre behavior wise, but I mean, like, it's just his skin. And she's like kind of pinching it between her fingers, kind of like she did with the mortuary putty that she was using earlier to make the. So you're like, oh, so what is she doing here? This is obviously something that her trip is like making her question whether he's real or something like that. Then like someone at the party just gets domed with a bottle and like their brow gets split open and has like a big gash in his brow. And this person is apparently like fucked up. You could tell this person is like tripping balls in some capacity, because they're like not really reacting with a lot of urgency to this big head wound. And all of a sudden you see the little girl is there, and she's like has a clown makeup on. So this like, she's there and she's kind of controlling Ella's hand, and Ella is like poking and prodding at the guy's wound and getting blood all over her, like sticking her finger in his wound and stuff. And then everyone's just looking at her all creeped out, and she bails. And you're not really sure what actually happened and what didn't happen, but you know that Ella got kind of freaked out. You assume that she's on acid, and then she bails into the woods. And now this is when they really just flat out say, essentially, not in so many words, but they just pretty much flat out say that the little girl is part of Ella's subconscious. They kind of give up that concession. And now at this point, Ella is now more apt to start to give in to the demands of the little girl, because it's like, oh, I get it. You don't exist. You are me. I am you.
Yeah.
It doesn't change that much, but it does kind of, she's less prone to like argue or battle with herself, I guess.
Right.
But then it's revealed pretty soon thereafter that Ella never took the drugs.
Yeah, which I think is great, because like you were saying, in that scene, it's super grounded. It's not like all those other drug trip out scenes, because she wasn't actually tripping on the drugs. Oh. No, she wasn't. She's just guys has poo brains, and she's all whacked out. She's losing touch with reality. So she goes back, and we don't know this yet, but she goes back and starts making the Ashman out of the dead fox. And then the little girl starts to reveal more about the story.
someone is buzzing at the apartment door, and you don't know if it's Tom or if it's that motherfucking Ash man coming to see what's up. But she catches a little glimpse of something stalking her up the apartment steps, and she hurries up and locks herself, obviously in the apartment, and then you get the banging on the door. So they'd already done that once the previous night, right? So you're like, oh, he's coming, or this is what's going to happen when he comes. So now this is him actually coming in quote unquote real life. So the Ash man comes. The Ash man cometh, if you will, bangs on the door, and then we get this eyeball jump scare where through the peephole, and that was her, or he saw her. Right. That's kind of what the little girl suggests. And then this is when she wakes up on the floor, and Tom is there, and that's when she reveals that she didn't even do the drugs with a Z. She's tripping au natural.
Hell yeah.
They quickly watch her progress. And she had created that essential scene in her stop motion animation of the Ash man seeing her. Ella has a little freak out because she kind of doesn't she thought that really happened, but of course she animated it. She's losing touch with reality, obviously, and she freaks out a little bit. Goes to stay at Tom's house. Then starts to hallucinate in the shower at Tom's house that she's made of the mortuary putty.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. So now we're getting a little poltergeisty kind of vibes here. The puppet that night, she's laying in bed. She's imagining herself as awake, just kind of laying in bed. And it's almost a sleep paralysis demon type situation where she's laying in bed. She can't really move. And the little puppet of the protagonist in her story, the stop motion puppet, walks into the room, little tiny, 8-inch tall, whatever, 6-inch tall, and while she's lying in the bed, and starts opening up her leg. And then you assume that was a dream because then she wakes up, but you learn later that no, something or her, it seems pretty clear, she actually did open up her own leg. So she's got this big gash in her leg. But we don't really know that yet. Unless I missed it. I did not pick up on that until later when you saw the stitches. Yeah,
I don't think she did it in this scene or did it after this scene. I think it was just an idea placed in her head of
okay,
what's coming next, because she sees a lot of what's coming next down the pipe before it happens. And then acts it out later. So I don't think she actually cut her thigh open at this point. But yeah,
she saw the vision of the character doing, which makes sense because they went out to breakfast and later on she's limping and stuff, and she's not at this point.
Right.
But yeah, they go out to breakfast. They're having what seems like a nice little time. But you do see that the little girl is sitting at the table next to her with the juice box, just kind of waiting on her, and then approaches her in the bathroom and starts telling her the next levels of the story. And this is when she's still trying to kind of block it out and pretend this all isn't happening. And then she says, to her, I don't want to know, don't tell me. And the little girl tells her on the first night he sees her, on the second night he touches her. So Ella then is still trying to fight all this. She goes to work with Tom and Polly at the, kind of commercial animation firm or whatever that they work at, I guess. They have her doing all these kind of menial animation tasks, making a bunch of eyeballs. And she was like, I thought I was going to be animating. And she's a little bit insulted because she's like, I'm above all this and you're just giving me some menial ass task to do. But there is another, which he never came back around, but I thought he would. There was another guy who was kind of a weirdo stop motion animator there, who kind of fanboys out a little bit because he's a big fan of her mother and is curious about how she grew up, and Ella's just not having it. I thought that would come back around a little bit. It really doesn't.
No,
it just adds kind of a little layer. And then we learn that Polly, again, who's Tom's sister, boyfriend's sister, has stole Ella's idea of the little girl in the woods and is using it for a commercial. And and she admits it. She's like, this is mine. And she was like, yeah, I wanted you to come work on it and you didn't want to. So I just took the idea and changed it and using it for this ad. And Ella flips shit, goes fucking ballistic, wrecks the place. She's tearing up the setting and gets tossed out. And then Ella goes to the hospital and starts, that's when she goes to see her mom. And this is the scene we talked about before where she's like kind of animating her mom's lifeless hand. And then that's when she has another conversation with her mom about how she can't deal with all this shit. Like her mom, quote unquote, herself is explaining to her that she's a puppet for other people and she can't, like, I guess, quote unquote, pull the strings of her own life. There's a lot of puppet analogies here.
Yeah.
Which I was like, wait, they're not marionettes. They're like, there's no strings. There's no strings in these puppets. But her project that she's working on is kind of a microcosm of that, as well as her trying to, find her own voice as an artist. And that's the night she tries to like stand up to the little girl and say like, no, we're going to do this. We're not going to have that happen on the second night. We're going to have other stuff happen on the second night. So Ella, Ella proper, the human Ella in the real world, quote unquote, real world. It gets a little convoluted here. I'll say Ella proper. How's that? Tries to have the puppet her escape that night. She's like, no, the second night she escapes. But this is when things really start to become unglued, because as she's animating the quote unquote second night, a life-size version of the Ashman comes out of the set in quote unquote real life, which is a really cool scene. Yeah. And then as soon as the life-size version of the Ashman comes out, Ella's legs just turn into putty and she just collapses. And then she is now transformed into the little tiny putty doll that she made.
Mm-hmm. It basically, we are now thrown into a Tool video.
Yeah. Tool video or fucking maybe Rammstein or something like that. But yeah, she escapes through this little crack in the wall, and then she goes through the crack in the wall behind the drywall or plaster or whatever, and the big giant Ashman is trying to put his little creepy hand in there and get her, and eventually she gets through a wall and she sees on the other side just this like weird like ruffly gold fabric. You have no idea what it is. There's no context here. There's no way of you knowing what it is.
Right.
You're like, what's this little weird fabric in there? Ultimately, the Ashman kind of grabs her, and now we see Ella's quote unquote Ella proper's real face in the real world is being touched by the life-size Ashman, and he feeds her the egg that we saw at the beginning.
Yeah.
The weird little black, blue, whatever, dirty egg. And we don't know at all what's happening, and we don't know what's happening in the story or what is happening in Ella's mind right now, Mm-hmm. But it feels like this like dream. It's very dreamy. It's very it feels like a hallucination. And we keep seeing these images of that black blue egg as well. And then she wakes up and Ella's in the hospital.
Right.
So after that whole sitch, she ends up in the hospital. And basically they're like, hey, we found you wandering around your building, just all poo-brained.
Right. Yeah. And then that's when it's revealed that like she has like stitches in her legs and she has like a bump on her head. So a couple things. One is the whole sequence of like her running away from the Ashman and then getting fed the egg. If we play kind of the mental illness parallel, the Ashman is now visiting her. So she's already seen mental illness in her mother. Now this is kind of like a triggering event, because I think it's something that kind of happens, I think, to a lot of people who suffer like mental illness. They'll have like an event that like is almost like a signifier. Like I know a couple people in my life that like they just went and had like one event that like sent them over, kind of over the edge, and there was like a big signifier that there was something really wrong.
Sure.
So like this second bout where he touches her is like saying, oh, like this is kind of her triggering event, and the egg is something that's waiting to be born and waiting to be completed. And so like once the egg hatches, that is the end. That is when mental illness is fully taken over and realized itself. So
yeah, the Ashman kind of plants the seed in her at this point, the ticking time bomb, if you will, that is going to come to fruition, and there's nothing she can do about it. She can't control it.
Yeah.
I wonder if the egg early on was the kind of like the egg was, how do I say this? Because it's like one of the first things you see on screen when the movie starts, which is a little curious to me. And I wonder if that is the egg, because the egg is not even necessarily mental illness as much as it is maybe the effects of mental illness. And I wonder if it's like it has been kept it has been kept at bay, or it has been kept, the mom, if you will, has been kind of sitting on the egg, incubating it, if you will, for how long. And now the ultimate effects, which is, spoiler alert here, that is going to ultimately result in a big catastrophic fucking people dying event, is ultimately the hatching of it later, which we do see.
Yeah. I think because the film starts with showing us the egg in just like in a dark but neutral space, I think that's just a signifier of existence. Like it's the existence of like
it's
evil.
there.
Like it just exists. Like it may we don't know who it's going to exist in yet, but it does exist. So
remember this egg for later.
Yeah, remember this egg. This will be important. This will be on the test.
Yeah. Can I offer you an egg in your time of need?
Yes.
Wait, no. Could I offer you an egg during this trying time?
Right. Which will actually become, this egg will become your trying times.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to just draw attention to is just like, I can't square the circle on this completely yet, but what Ella now has like this scar in her leg, and she eventually like winds up using it to, in a way, like add to the animation. Like she pulls ligaments out of her leg or muscle tissue out of her leg.
Yeah, tendon or something weird.
Yeah. Did you see or like get reminded any of like the Greek myth Dionysus?
Oh, okay. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like a Greek god, and he's like the Greek god of a lot of things. Like including he is the Greek god of like fruit and vegetation and fertility, but also he's the Greek god of insanity, ritual madness, and theater. So part of his kind of origin story is like after he was given birth, Zeus sewed him into his thigh to give birth to him again.
Sure.
I was just wondering if like, is there anything there? Do you see that as well?
I like that. I did not pick up on that, but I like the idea of, because she was almost destined to be, self-tortured for her art, like the self-flagellation. She was going to die and suffer at her own hands for her art. And they even say it later, you know what I mean? Like where she starts to use, she's going to use herself. And then of course she's going to use other people as part of her art. I guess so. But then, like you said, I'm struggling to complete, what that means, because ultimately, the end is so up to interpretation. But if she would have just stuck with the mutilation of herself for her art, then I would have been like, okay, I could totally get that. Or if somebody else used her for her art, I don't know. But the fact that the culmination of her madness is her actually using other people for her art.
Yeah.
Is the confusing part to me.
Yeah. I don't know how that would tie in the Dionysus, but that's also just because maybe there's more to the myth that I don't know. Like I'm just
could be. Yeah. The only reason I remember it recently is because my kids were studying like Greek and Roman mythology recently.
Right.
So I kind of got a little bit of a refresher course.
Yeah, but maybe there's something deeper to that. But I don't think it's out of the realm because, again, the first film that was being worked on was about Cyclopses. So, like, that's also Greek myth to begin with. So there could be.
Yeah. Good call.
So there. I think it's there, but maybe we're just not as well versed in Greek myth to fully carry the metaphor that's being presented all the way there. But I like the idea that, you know, the Greek god of theater and madness is pulled out of the thigh to aid to a project that is basically theater and madness.
Yes. Yeah. No, I would be surprised if there wasn't something there. I think that's a good call. And yeah, now I want to go read up on Dionysus because like I said, it's been fucking 25 years probably since I read anything about it. So Tom shows up in the hospital next morning and is trying to propose to Ella how basically like she can get better. And she's kind of being a jerk to him. This is when she's like, you're not an artist. You know, you fucking go to work and put on a suit and you fucking bitch. And you know, she's just a jerk to him about his music. But then he's like, you got to stop this. You got to go fucking destroy this art. I'm going to go delete your movie. And she's like, no, don't. I'll do it. And he's like, well, we'll go together the next day and delete it and dismantle it all together. At this point, and it's weirdly vague, but because it's dreamlike, and really from here to the end of the movie, you really don't know what's happening, what isn't happening. Although there are some things that are pretty clear, but the mom has died. So she isn't really told. I don't know if anybody's keeping it from her or whatever, but she ends up in her mom's room and sees that her mom is dead. She's not on the ventilator anymore. She a corpse. And the little girl kind of comes in and like breaks her out of the hospital. Like when she's in there and she doesn't even give her any time to really like grieve or anything about her mom. She's like, are we done here? Like, let's fucking get out of here. And they break out and they go straight back to the apartment and start working on the project. And the little girl goes as far as to say like, hey, this dead fox business like is not working. We need, she's like, it's all dried up, or the meat that she used the raw meat she used to make the little girl, the representation of herself. She's like, it's not working. It's all dried out. We need something more bleedy. She uses that term. And that is, that's, you know, when you're like, okay, she's going to start killing people or herself or hurting herself and using it in her art. There's this pretty brief, but like oddly intense scene of Ella strangling the little girl. And we know it's not a real little girl, so the stakes aren't exactly there, but it's still like pretty intense, like a grown woman strangling a little girl. But then it's like, just kidding, she's fine. She's like, now that you got that out of your system or whatever. So, you know, if you didn't already understand that she doesn't exist, now she super doesn't exist.
Yeah. The one thing I was hoping they did, and I don't know, maybe they did do a take of it, but decided it didn't work, was a lot of the early scenes with the girl is like she introduces herself by like burping. Like one of the scenes, she's wearing a monster mask and she just like peers her head through a door after like scaring Ella, and then she just burps. Yeah. And I was hoping they had a shot of her on the couch looking dead, and I thought she was just gonna like turn and then burp at Ella again. And I was like, yeah, but I feel like maybe that would be too tension breaking in a way.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, and they instead of her like just going, JK, I'm not dead, she actually like pops up behind her. So it's like, not only is she not capable of being killed, she's literally not there. Like corporeal, she is obvious. Mm-hmm. In case you didn't pick it up, she is like not corporeal. She is just a vision.
Which might be the other reason why they went that route as well. Yeah. As just like a final confirmation of like, in case you somehow are too thick to get it now, here she is just popping up behind her like a ghost, and she's still there. And like, okay, do you get it now?
Yeah. in case you are waiting for our buddy Dom Torino to show up, she ain't real. She ain't there. I know his name isn't Dom Torino, guys. Shut the fuck up. Go check out the Patreon podcast
in
and get
case
that reference.
You have a chin strap beard, as in reference to last week's episode.
Oh yeah. If you can't read, you have a chin strap beard and can't read. So Ella is nervous about what's going to happen in the third act. Very nervous. And they even go as far as to say, this is the little girl says something along the lines of like, great artists always put themselves into their work. So now she's envisioning all the puppets are coming to life, and basically watching Ella prepare to mutilate herself. And we see that she has that wound now that was on the leg from earlier, and it's stitched up from the hospital. But she starts to open up the wound. There's this very extended scene of her removing the stitches, starts digging into the wound, and just digging around and bleeding everywhere and stuff. Just at that moment, Tom and Polly show up as she pulls out that whatever it is, little tendon or something out of her leg. Pretty gross. And then Ella kind of passes out. She's like fading in and out of consciousness. She's maybe faking. We don't really know. But Tom and Polly are obviously very concerned, kind of freaking out. And they're trying to carry her out of the room, assumedly, back to the hospital. As they're trying to carry her out, she straight up horse kicks Polly in the face, knocks her down, and then just yeets Tom down the stairs, just tosses his ass down the stairs. And he hits his head. And then she brains Polly with the camera and then jams the tripod through her throat. So things really escalate quickly from the violence perspective. Like up until this point, it's just been like self-mutilation. Like, is it real? Is it not? And now Ella has now murdered Polly. She goes down the stairs. Tom is laying there. He is severely concussed, like kind of fading in and out of consciousness. He's got poo brains. Ella suffocates him by like just putting her hand over his mouth and nose, which at first I was like, wait, did that really happen? Because she's like, it takes a lot longer to suffocate somebody than that, I'm pretty sure. And she's very strong. She has abnormally strong, I don't know, I guess, hands from doing stop motion. I don't know. Who knows? But the little girl is pretty much like, oh, hell yeah. Like that was sick. loves that she's now murdered Tom and Polly. She quickly starts to dismantle Tom and Polly and makes life-size puppets out of them. And there's like maggots and shit. Like it's pretty gross. It's pretty graphic. And as soon as she finishes making them, and she is not looking good, by the way, right now. Ella is like barely conscious, pale as a ghost, losing a lot of blood, very weak, very disoriented. Obviously the little girl is kind of like directing her a little bit. And the light, when I say life size, I mean, they're probably like 4 foot, like 3.5, 4 foot tall puppets. And they come to life and start to play out the quote unquote third night. And the Ash Man starts to come towards Ella instead of coming towards the puppet Ella or the protagonist of the film. Starts to come towards Ella proper. And Ella and the little girl start to seem very confused because this isn't really supposed to be, quote unquote, supposed to be what happens in the third act. So Ella locks herself in the other room, and the Ash Man's banging on the door like he had in the past. And then he just kind of zooms on in, just bypasses the door essentially. And they kind of have this weird, like dreamy showdown where Ella is visualizing the big egg again. And Ella starts to pull off her putty face. Her face is made of putty now. She starts to pull off her putty face and feeds it to the Ash Man. So it goes on for a good like 20 seconds of her just like ripping chunks of her face off, eating at the Ash Man. Then the Ash Man just kind of gnawing on her face like a fucking chicken thigh. It's pretty intense. And then the egg hatches.
Yeah, which to the mental illness metaphor, this is her just giving herself over to it and allowing it to literally consume her, but consume her and just become part of her.
She off the deep end, and then the egg hatches. So again, now we're seeing that ticking time bomb, if you will, of whatever it is. It's a mental illness, it's the effects of it, whatever has now hatched. And there's like gore inside of it, by the way, when the egg hatches. It's not like a bird or anything.
No.
It's not a dang platypus. It's just gore.
It's more meat.
Yeah, just meat, bloody meat. So she's now murdered 2 people. You cut to Ella, and she's like in these misty woods, and it's dreamlike. So you're kind of meant to assume this probably isn't happening. And she goes into the house that is essentially the house that they made for the dolls. So like, yes, this is definitely now not happening. The little girl is in there, and the little girl is watching the film on a laptop in this like life-size little set that she's like inside the set of the film. And then she's watching on the screen, and you mentioned this before, Ella proper is in the film that they're watching within the set of the film. So it's a little Inception level delusions here. And she appears to be kind of snapping pictures of herself laying on the floor in a very same position as the Cyclops earlier on, which we didn't really get into it a lot, but that was her mom's film.
Right.
And so what she ultimately has, so kind of bringing this full circle, she had talked about, let me try to remember it, but Mrs. Cyclops in her mom's movie had basically traded, she got something like some sort of gift of foresight or something in exchange for having to see her own death. So this is, of course, ties in very much to the egg, the ticking time bomb, that she was going to see her own death, and her death is kind of her final project, if you will, because she's kind of snapping pictures of herself in the same position to kind of add another layer of symbolism to the mix here. This is her literally in a literal physical sense finishing her mom's movie. This is her seeing her death. Although she didn't finish her mom's movie with the Cyclops, she is the Cyclops in her mom's movie in real life now.
Right.
So, and she's snapping pictures of herself, and she is basically making a film of her own death to do her own version, her own work, but in an indirect way, finishing her mom's work as well. And part of her mom's work is mental illness. I think is also, I guess, what we're meant to believe as well. And she's like bleeding out on the floor. So from her wounds, her leg wound and all that stuff. So that's interesting. I love to kind of run through that through the old brain here. Like the Dionysus comparison that you mentioned, because ultimately the wound that something comes out of her leg that is integrated in the process is her demise. Literally, she bleeds out from that wound. You can see her entire leg is just like covered in foot. Like we assume that's the wound she's bleeding out from.
Right.
So who was it that got stuck in the leg? Is it Zeus?
So Zeus sewed Dionysus into Zeus's leg. And then Dionysus was born out of Zeus's leg. So,
but then Zeus was cool after that. He obviously didn't die. So like, is that her just becoming taking ownership as the master of her fate? Because Zeus is the king of the gods. I don't know. That's a stretch.
I think the twist is that in this, she thinks she's Zeus or God, in that she is the creator, the animator, but in reality, she's the Cyclops.
I like that. Yeah, she's the animator. She thinks she's the animator, but actually she's just a puppet, like her mom always said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she calls her poppet,
right?
Which is like a British kind of term of endearment for like a cute little kid. It just means like kind of doll. It's like if you call a little kid like a doll or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a term of endearment over there. But then obviously it sounds like puppet, and then she's told by her own brain as her mom, you're nothing but a puppet. So yeah, she's again, and this goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of like how she thinks she deserves to not have to work at the animation house, that she can take up her mother's mantle, like all of these, like self-aggrandizing thoughts that she has that are just actually delusions. She's not Zeus. She is the Cyclops, who is nothing more than a blacksmith. And then she sees her own death. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the end piece here, this is where I feel like this is really up to interpretation. There might be something that I just missed here. There is a callback, but I don't understand exactly to what. So after that, she sees herself dying on the screen, and the little girl's in the room. Then there's a chest in the room, and it had been there the whole time, but you didn't really know what this big, it looked like a freaking loot chest from Zelda or something. It's a big ass chest. And she opens it up, and this golden frilly fabric that we saw earlier when she first kind of gave over, or actually it was before she gave over to the Ashman and fed him her face and all that. But when she was transformed into the little wax character and escaped him through the wall, she saw the inside of the next room over she couldn't get into was this same frilly fabric. And at that point, you had no idea what it was. But now when she opens up the chest, the entire interior of the chest is lined with that fabric. It's the same fabric. That is clearly what that room was on a smaller scale that she had kind of almost sideways tunneled into earlier. And she looks over at the little girl, Ella does, and the little girl says, "I love it." And Ella smiles and then gets into the chest and kind of closes it. So it's very much suggested that this is like her, not unlike a coffin. This is her final resting place. She has either given into insanity or has given into death. And this is her final conclusion of her project, her art piece here. But what is the significance of the box and the fabric and all that? I failed to make any connection there aside from, and the fact that she almost got into it earlier. Was it like she wasn't ready for death then, but now she is because she's finished her project? Is it as simple as that? Or I couldn't piece this one together. Yeah.
So I think you're on the right track, because that's what I was kind of pulling away as well. That, the inside of the box with all the frilly gold fabric is like obviously like the inside of a coffin.
Yeah.
The box itself being much more like an old toy box, even, it kind of plays back into like the idea of like her being a puppet. Like she's being put away now because like she has no more use. Her play
like
time,
that.
her time for play is over. But it also does signify like she's been put away. So now it's, either the little girl or the Ashman. It's mental illness that's in control. So even if she does survive this dire situation of her bleeding out on the floor, like Ella isn't coming back from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that box, and I kind of took it as like that box, it was always in the room, and you never really took a lot of notice of it, but it was always in the room. And so that box being, death, or maybe even to a more broader level, like fate, like that was her final resting place, whatever it was. Her fate was, when you're done, you're going to put all of yourself, whether it is your literal life or it is your mental, your sanity, is going into the fucking go away box at the end of this, whether you like it or not. We all know it, and there's nothing you can do to change it.
Yep. And that's why she couldn't get, like, she does try to escape into the box earlier. We don't know that's what she's aiming for, but it feels like when we're first presented it feels like safety and, you know, salvation because it's gold. Yeah. You know, it's in that bright contrast of all the dark green and the sickliness and like all the, you know, so it's in direct. I wonder. Yeah. Yeah. It's in direct contrast of all the sickness and, you know, meat and all that shit we're seeing on the other side of the hole. And she's trying to escape into it. And so we don't know that we think it's a salvation at first, but we don't know that it is death. And that's what it ultimately winds up being.
Yeah, I guess there's now I'm coming up with an alternate theory here was, you know, if the Ash Man obviously represents her declining mental state and ultimately descending into madness, and she's running from that, she gets through the wall, which is just only a temporary escape from the Ash Man. And then on the other side, the other alternative that she finds is death, which at that point, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that it represents like suicide if she understands the inevitability of her mental decline. As it's almost her considering suicide at that moment. But she feels like she hasn't finished. She has some sort of desire to finish something that she doesn't fully understand what it is yet. Yeah. And the Ash Man pulls her out of that and is like, no, you got some stuff to finish. The egg still needs to hatch before you can die. And ultimately, you know, once the egg has hatched at the end, that is when she fully accepts death and almost treats it as a reprieve, you know, because as she, not only does the little girl say like, I love it. This was built for us. This was here for us. We are agreeing that this is the right thing to do. Yeah. She's like almost smiling as she like looks at the little girl and closes the, like out of context, it might have been a funny scene. Yeah. She's like slowly lowering it and like looking at the little girl and you just see her eyes like poking above it, you know? So that's her like fully accepting death as it's like a natural thing that's happening now. I have died as a result of my art, even though I'm not dying a natural death. I am, in a sense, from an artist's perspective, dying for your art is like almost the most natural death you could have.
And like you said already, it's the agreeance, because in that scene, her and the little girl are in agreeance, but in the first instance, her and the little girl aren't in agreeance, because in that she's trying to escape, and the little girl had already said that's not how this story goes. So yeah. You're right. Yeah,
because she wanted to escape. Yes, okay, makes perfect sense. Because she was like, that's not what happens on the second night. She's like, no, we're going to escape on the second night. That's not what happens on the second night. The third night is, of course, death. Death couldn't happen on the second night. You had to give in to your insanity before you could die. And you had to finish your art before you could die. So, yep, no, that makes sense. We solved it, guys.
Movie solved.
No more
Don't
questions.
have to watch
it. No more questions. Let's send it in to the New York Times. You know, we're probably going to win the sweepstakes now. That was very reminiscent. And this, good God, years and 3-4 years ago now, reminiscent of our discussion around A Field in England. I felt like I was having deja vu of these super, super open-ended stories. But anyway, and that's the end. I mean, she closes the lid of her, you know, I guess I'll say final resting place, because it doesn't look like a coffin. It looks more like a jewelry box or something like that, you know?
Yeah, it's like a big old toy chest or pirate chest, you know, whatever it is. But it's or even like it could be just like an equipment trunk where you keep stuff. But like
whatever, a costume trunk or something.
Yeah. But whatever it is, she's putting herself in there, and then that's it for her.
That's it. I wonder if it's a ventriloquist type of thing. Because remember the most nonsensical scene in the movie was when you thought she was tripping, but she wasn't, and the ventriloquist dummy just like mumbling on the screen. That was like I that was the part that I was like, what is the significance of this? Because they're really lingering on it, and I wonder if that was her like. Because that was a big break scene for her. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's, and I wonder if it's like she saw that and was like, no, I'm just a puppet. This is when I'm coming to the realization that I'm just a puppet, I guess.
Yeah, I think the lack of other puppets, maybe if there were more puppets to proliferate the puppet motif. But
proliferation of puppets.
Yeah, I just want to see the proliferation.
That's a college radio. That's a college radio band right there.
Absolutely.
Proliferation of puppets.
Fuck yeah, they are high all the time.
Yeah, they're a jam band.
Yeah,
proliferation of puppets.
Like they try to have like political lyrics, but they are too high.
No, it's just kite analogies and talking about precious stones and shit and like wizards. All right, guys, that was Stop Motion from 2023. I think it's fair to say we both really like this movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say there's still a lot of stuff that's come out this year that people are high on that I haven't seen yet. But, if we do another end of year wrap up of, some of our top 10 or something like that, I could see this sneaking on there. For
sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's been one of the, I mean, as far as horror goes, it's been one of the better films I've seen. And I'm surprised like more people aren't talking about it, but also it is very arty. So I can see why maybe
polarizing.
Yeah. Polarizing. Why it doesn't exactly grab everybody. But I really enjoyed this one. But it's that and Under
super
Paris.
Well performed. I haven't seen it yet.
I know.
It seems like pretty different.
Yeah, no, it's just funny.
Sewer sharks.
Yeah, one is so dumb, and then this one is pretty high-minded with a lot of subtext and like do-it-yourself fucking like discovery. and Under Paris is dumb as shit.
Yeah, subtext around generational trauma and mental illness or sewer sharks.
Yeah.
We all live in the dichotomy, I guess. There, like we can appreciate art house horror, and we can also appreciate sewer sharks.
Yep.
That's what's so great about genre films, guys. All right. Any last thoughts on this? Anything else that we should say before we wrap up the conversation on Stop Motion?
No, just go watch that episode of Poker Face with that's Phil Tippett did work on with Nick Nolte. It fucking rules, and it has like I think you'll see like a lot of similar elements between that and this, and it's great.
Nice. I'm checking it out. I'm checking it out on the old Peacock over there. I knew I was still paying for Peacock for some fucking reason. All right, guys, don't forget, check out our social medias at Halloween is Forever. Just search that any of the dang old Twitters or the Instagrams or whatever, because we are going to do a poll this week, and you can help us decide whether we're going to do some wrestling horror or some horror with some wrestlers in it, some more cosmic horror, which is always fun, or that future writer / director topic that has been on the poll before but has not won. So that should be fun. Check it out over there, and as always, don't forget. If you want to send us or not send us, but rather write us a review on your podcatcher app of choice, whether it's the Spotify or whether it's the Apple Podcast or does Stitcher still exist? Is that still a thing?
No,
no, I don't think so. What's another podcast app? There's another one I always forget. Oh, iHeart. People are always about the iHeart radio app.
Yeah, you can go on iHeart
like for podcasts.
You can go where we're actually hosted on Podbean.
Or Pandora, too. People still do that, I think.
Yeah.
Go over there, give us a number of stars, whatever the maximum number is, and then you got to write a little review. Say like, hey, these guys, all right. And then shoot us a DM if you feel like it, and I'll mail you some motherfucking Halloween is Forever stickers in the mail. You could pop them around, do crimes with them, vandalize shit with them as we creep ever closer to the spooky season. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything else we should talk about before we wrap this one up, Steve?
Nope. That's it.
Nope. That's it. That's the podcast. Tune in next week. We'll have another mini-sode for you, and we'll let you know what one and what movies we're going to pick and who our guests going to be for that showdown in July. All right. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Mad God.
No, you're not. All right. Bye.
Bye.
You're not Phil Tippett.
I'm Mad God.